Hello everyone, myself Varun Reddy and welcome to All About Planning. In today's episode of Know Your Planner, we have Professor Niraj Verma. Professor Niraj Verma is an urban planning and management expert. He joined the Wilder School in 2010 and served as its director and first dean until 2016. Prior to joining the Wilder School, he has served as a professor and the chair of Department of Urban and Regional Planning at the University of Buffalo. He started his academic career at the University of Southern California, Los Angeles as a tenured faculty member. He has done his bachelor's in engineering from Birla Institute of Technology and did his Master of Infrastructure Planning from Germany. His doctoral research is on design theories and methods from University of California, Berkeley. Most recently, he has been a visiting fellow at the Judge Business School at Cambridge University, and he has been awarded the Fulbright Nehru Award for his academic and professional excellence. This video is in collaboration with NOSPlan. Let us know what are his views and experiences in the field of planning.
Hello, nice to meet you.
So, we are very honored to have you here, sir. And the most important question that I want to ask you today is, the planning education that we receive here in India, in the Indian context, is majorly based on our own rules, regulations and the bylaws. So if a graduate from here aims to work in another country, so is it a must for him or her to receive further education in that respective country?
I only know mostly about the United States, although I've lived in Germany as well. And I think that there are two issues here. One is, regardless of the quality and the nature of the education, is there a possibility of working there, right? So that has to do with institutional arrangements and so on. In some fields like computer science, you can easily find things, right? And they're more generic, they're more transferable, and also the demand far outstrips the supply. So in planning, these are not the case. Right, so it's going to be, in my view, quite a bit hard for a person who's educated here to just come into the United States and get a job in planning. Now, even if some of the other institutional issues are managed, like visas and work and so on, I think the challenges are considerable. So in some ways, our students learn about things also through internships and so on. So maybe doing an internship first would put a person in a better position than just a raw kind of degree, right? So regardless of where the degree is, whether in the United States or from India and so on, we highly recommend that they do internships.
So, and you have traveled many nations across the world.
That is true.
So how are the planning practices different in most of these countries?
That's a kind of big question, right? But I'll suggest that one way of thinking about it is to think about what's the role of government in each of these contexts, right? And how interventionist is government in each country, and whether it's central or state or local. So the differences come about through that. That's one mechanism of thinking about things. So in the United States, planning is largely decentralized. It's largely a local government activity. So that means at the city level or sometimes at the county level, but much less frequently at the state level, although there are some exceptions like economic development planning is also supported by the state. And at the federal level, the planning in the United States is the only thing which the federal government does is one is on things like national parks, the planning of those kinds of things, or military installations and so on. So those are there. And indirectly through some agencies like HUD, which is our Housing and Urban Development Ministry, but they would more do funding for things rather than actual planning. So mostly planning is at the local level. In Germany, for instance, there's quite a lot of intervention by government from the federal level. So the federal plans are adhered to by the states and by the principalities and so on. Then, the parallel thing when we say what's the role of government means what's the role of the market, in each of these. In the United States, there's a perspective that we should limit the role of government and unleash the power of the market. Now, opinion is divided on these between different scholars, and nobody quite says that all of market is good or all of government is good. So it's somewhere in between. But markets are relied on to create competition, and increasingly we see that many of the things that governments do can also be equally well or even sometimes better performed by the market. So now in Germany, that's a little bit less so. I think the perspective of government is probably more dominant than the market, and first and foremost, planning is essentially a government activity. So many of our students actually in the United States get jobs in private sector corporations, working with real estate firms, for instance, or working with consulting organizations, which then subcontract their work to the government. Right? So, I can talk endlessly about the differences, but one way of organizing those differences is to think about how, what kind of government plays a role and what role does it play.
Right. So you get asked these questions very frequently about a student's higher education abroad. Yeah. So
Right.
What is your suggestion to all of them?
I don't know if there's a generic advice that I will give, so I can give advice to people who do want to study abroad, let's say, right? So whether you should or whether you should not is really something that the student and his or her family and parents should decide. But let's say you are going to the United States to study, I think you have a better chance at a job, because as part of your studies you'll do an internship and so on. And plus, the quality of education in the United States is very high in planning. I think the quality of research is very high, especially in the major research universities. And I think it's a fun experience to have, living abroad and studying there and so on. So one of my findings was, when I studied in Germany, that it taught me a lot about myself, right, as much as about Germany. So who am I, and how do I relate to India? What do I think of the value of my own education? What am I learning here? So it tells you a lot. And what do I miss most? And what do I, is Indian food that important to me? Things like that. So you learn a lot, small things about yourself by staying abroad. So it's interesting that we do study abroad opportunities for our students. And there was a survey once, national level, I think, and they found that the thing that students remember most from their college education is the time when they went abroad and studied, even though it was a month, right, in the 4 years or whatever. So there's some great, actually not some, I would say great value in just being able to go to another culture and country, live there for even a short period of time, see how things go, and how certain things that you had taken for granted are not taken for granted, and vice versa. Some things that you thought were totally flexible are quite so strong, like in India, the structure of the family and the connections between people, or the meaning of community may be quite different from that in the United States. And in the United States, there are quite a few things, institutions that we take for granted. Most Americans, when they come here, they'll talk about traffic and hygiene, which is the most perplexing thing for them, right? And then they'll start learning, and the longer you stay, the more you love the country and what's happening. Right? Okay, well, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this video, do share it, and don't forget to subscribe and follow All About Planning and NOSPlan on all the social media platforms. The links to all our social media platforms are given in the description below. Thank you.